Callum and I have been friends for a long, long time. We never knew each other at the beginning when we were asked to do the exhibition, Constructed Narratives at the Photographers Gallery. Because somebody said to me, well, you're going to have an exhibition, the Photographers Gallery, wonderful. It started for me when Photographers Gallery came around the country to see where people, what people were doing. Sadly, that doesn't happen anymore. We don't care what people are doing anymore, but what people were doing. And they took my work and they showed 3 pieces in the Photographers Gallery, and then a few months later they came back and said, we're going to give you an exhibition with a guy called Callum Colwood. Do you know him? I went, no. He said, well, he's from Edinburgh. I went, no, really? So I didn't know that. But, so that's how we started off, and I'm going to just sort of let you run through what I did. I always drew and painted. I always did that, right? When I was at school, primary school in the Ratlock in Stirling, which was a rough school, and with a name like Ronald, you had to be pretty tough. But what I did, I wasn't tough, but what I had was an ability to draw. And I could draw tanks and aeroplanes like Spitfires and isometric, not just end elevation stuff, I'm talking isometric. So, which made me some kind of spirit person, you know. And what people did was, all the bullies and stuff would say, go and draw us a tank, so you draw stuff and you were magic. So I thought, there must be something in this art, carry on, you know. It stops you from getting beat up in the playground for a start. So that was it for me. So that was what I did. The first job I ever got was as a photographer at Stirling University. And so whilst I was interested in painting and drawing, then photography came along. And so I combined them both. But not immediately, because documentary was a big thing. When I was around, you know, Chris Killip, Christopher Perkins, all these people, not to mention the great Cartier Bresson, all these people who made images that didn't lie, or just about didn't lie, you know, all these people. And so that's what I did. If you want to look at my website, early stuff is street photography. Then I went on to do interiors, because I have a very low threshold of concentration, so I just changed stuff quite a lot. So interiors, I did black and white interiors, lots and lots of them. Then when I exhausted all that stuff, I was like, right, so what do I do now, you know? And one day somebody showed me in the zoology department at university this little old room where you opened the door and there was all these old dusty animals, stuffed animals in glass cases. And I was like, wow, this is fantastic. So, and I could get them, they just gave me, do you want to use them? Aye, no problem, just use them. So I used this stuff. And so it was almost as if a door had opened, and this was, when I looked through this camera, these were 5x4 at that time, when I looked through this camera, it was like a mini TV screen, upside down and reversed of course, but a mini TV screen. And I realised at that point, that to hell with all that documentary stuff, I could do what I wanted. I could put anything in this little square here, anything, didn't matter. I could put anything in there and it would work. So I decided, because I didn't have a car and my constructions were pretty simple, I just took these things with me, and this is just down by where we used to live. And I had 2 reinforcement rods like that, and I just shoved them into the bank and stuck this on top of it, just at a nice wee bit of the bank. And photographed it. And really, it was taking these animals back to their own environment for the last time. You know, because they were in a kind of stuffy old room and stuff like that. I took them back to their own environment. And you can see that trout's much happier there. You know? And so that's the kind of thing I started off doing. And then stuffed animals like this. I used to work in old buildings. Now it's more difficult. You can't get into these old buildings now because of health and safety, will fall through the floor and stuff like that. I used to get to work in old, I used to go to estate agents and say, can I use your old building, you know, and when it was, planning permission was being made so it could be made into flats or whatever, I got access to these places, and so I used this. And so this is a row. Actually, the day I took this photograph, I had a guy drove it up in a van for me, and there were workies in there, like ripping the place apart. There was no tenement building. And I went the week before, I said, "Is it okay if I use that room, this room, because I wanted this room with this paper in it." And the guy said, "I didn't bother, that's fine." So I came up the stairs with this goat under my arm. I went upstairs with this goat. And then when I got to the room prior to this, in fact the living room, because this is a bedroom, a living room, they had ripped all the floorboards up, and they were just the joists, and the room was there. So I had to like go over this with these joists. You could see through the next room down the stairs. This is what you do for your art, see? You don't really notice that. And the goat wasn't bothered. The passive look on the goat's face wasn't bothered. So I'm lifting this thing over, finally got it out. And I mean, the comments from the workies were, you know, I wouldn't even repeat them here at this point. Is that a stuffed goat, pal? Yes, indeed, it is a stuffed goat. I would ask anybody for anything, right? Being a photographer, that's what you need to do. You have a brass neck and you just ask whatever. This mannequin here was in a retro shop in the Bridges in Edinburgh. And it was in the window with all the stuff on it. So I went in one day and said to the guy, "Listen, I'm doing photographs and these are the kind of things I do. I'd love to borrow your mannequin." The boy went, "Hey, that's fine, how long you have it away for?" Oh, I said, "Oh, a couple of hours." So I walked with this mannequin all the way up to the Odeon, which is now shut. It's to let now, this Odeon cinema. It's a classic Odeon cinema. And set the mannequin up. And the wee woman brought out a tray, and we put all the butter kissed on it and stuff like that and photographed it as is. So it's called Odeon 2. And it's my kind of homage to that wonderful theatre, which we used to go and, if there's no police around, smoke joints and watch 2001 The Space Odyssey and stuff like that at 12 o'clock performances. Fantastic. This is my garage. I use my garage to photograph things. And this was Adam and Eve. And they became more elaborate, these things, you know, because I could, you know, as I say, I could do what I wanted, so it became more elaborate. So all of this stuff, and I was brought up a Catholic, but I don't think that's really got terribly much to do with the fact that I do some things that are fairly religious, sometimes religious things. Anyway, this is about Adam and Eve, and the thing is that the angel here, I think it was Gabriel, was it? Who came down, no, I can't remember who the angel was at Adam and Eve. But anyway, the angel came down, and the point about it is that the angel has a little tray here, and in the tray is 2 packets of Durex. And it's like, well, where would we all be if Adam and Eve wore Durex, you know? So, that is kind of idea. And this was bought by the Pompidou Centre at the time. Many years ago, I don't even know if they show it now, but I'll tell you, it took me a lot of time to get the money out of them for it. This is again another religious picture I took, because constructed work that set me free. I could do what I wanted with constructed work, right? It was not a problem for me to do these things. And this is a kind of interesting story, because this figure here is a figure from the Zocalo in Mexico City. Because I went to Mexico City a few times with the British Council to have exhibitions there, and I did quite a lot of work on a project I had called Day of the Dead. And I got some grant money and stuff like that to go back there. So I've been, this is a wooden statue of Christ, and when you see the back of it, it's flayed at the back, all flayed. And in Mexico, Britain for Catholicism is mild, Spain a bit wilder, Mexico incredibly wild, like they have blood everywhere, you know. And so this was a wooden, and I would love to have taken a photograph of this, but it said in the cathedral, no photographs to be taken. So anyway, I was telling my friend this, and he went, "I've got a photograph of that very thing." So this is a coloured copy of that photograph. And so this is called Blood, Sweat and Sperm, and it's because in Egypt, this is from one of the wall paintings in Egypt. In Egypt, when the high priest, who was incidentally picked at random, you could be a guy working in a stall, you could be working in the fields, you could be somebody quite rich. They just picked somebody in some way to be for 1 year the high priest at Karnak. And every morning at Karnak, according to the sun as it went, the moon as it rose, and very precisely, the high priest, so to speak, would have to spill his seed, right, every morning for a regeneration of the day. That was how it worked. And you could get an Egyptian handmaiden to give you a hand job or oral sex. Now, there you are. And that, I'm not making this up, that is a wall painting, that is from the wall painting, right? And it's called Blood, Sweat and Sperm. And it's really about two different religions. I know what religion I'd be gone with. So then what happens is, that people ask you, see these things you're building, could you build them in the gallery for us? I always thought, I never even thought of such a thing, you know, it's like, yeah, I can do that, sure. I'm building them anyway, so I can build them in the gallery, fine. So, then you've got to go to exotic places. I'm not sure that Montreal is exotic, but maybe palm trees, but I built this there because it's the waterfall. And it was really about the time when the Chernobyl affair was around, when it was very questionable whether you should drink water. Although the cloud in Chernobyl, the radiation cloud went the other way, there was talk of, you know, sheep thing being radiated and can you drink water? It was the first time that I ever really saw people buying water from supermarkets. Now there's an aisle of them, right? But then, nobody bought water. You know, we're in Scotland. You're crazy, you buy water, why? So, this is the natural waterfall, and it's Evian who, they sponsored me to build this, and this is all Evian bottles, the whole lot here is all Evian. And this was like right up to the corner of the room, it was about 20-25 foot high, and lit from the back, and so I'm interested in how society looks, how we are in society, or let's say how I see the world. And I'm not saying that I'm interested any more or less than anybody else in injustice in the world and so. But anytime that I see things, sometimes they just trigger something in you. And some people ponder that and think about it and argue about it or talk about it. I just make work about it, you know, that's my response to it. And this is called Isn't Shopping Murder? And it's really in response to a film I saw on television in Music 10 or something about an Eritrean camp which had this little line of canvas tents. And as the camera went along, there was these wee packages at the door of the tents. And you suddenly realised that these wee packages were babies that had died the night before, and they had just had to wrap them up and put them at the door for somebody to come and collect them. You know, and that was quite powerful, you know, because you see folk in the supermarket going, bloody hell, I've got to get up to Safeways. What a hassle that is, you know. So, in a sense, it was that kind of jargon of ideas. And there have been people who have said, how did you get permission to get a supermarket to let you do that? No, they didn't. I just made this, right? And you can see that because we didn't eat all these pizzas, by the way. I just got them from loads of folk, you know. But the pizzas are right at the front because they can fill up most shelf space. Like you can just stick them in a bag so you can get them in there quickly. But I did get the signs from a supermarket. And when you need stuff from stuff, you just do, you go to the supermarket and you say, hi there, I'm a teacher and I'm doing a project with my children at the supermarket. Is there any chance of you giving me some posters? But certainly, sir, no problem. This is a picture called To See Yourself as Others See You. Now, Callum does a lot about Robbie Burns, and this is a line from, I think, To a Louse. To see yourself as others see you, about Robbie Burns. And it was really again about the time when they were talking, and still are, talking about, you know, zapping old satellites now with lasers and whatnot. But then they were talking about, you've got a lot of problem with rubbish and waste and stuff like that. Why don't we just put it in big containers and just shove it up there at the road and let it just spin around, you know? I think that was probably not used very much, all that stuff. But this is the idea of that. And another thing is, I mean, on this side, it's not that easy to see these things because these things are shot on 10 by 8 and they're generally 8 or 10 foot, you know, by 6 or 8. So they're big, and the reason that they're shot on 10 by 8 is because you can stand back and see this from a distance as a piece, but you can go close to it and you can see all the little things that are happening. So, like for instance, in this earth here, you know, there are where wars are happening and where famine is happening and stuff like that all around here. So there's a lot of stuff that you can see within all this. Yeah, I think this was bought by Glasgow District Council. Art Galleries, Glasgow Art Galleries, I think, bought this. And this is the picture that I'm going to be wrapped in when I die. Well, I'm not sure if I'm going to be buried or cremated yet, but either or, this is what I'm going to be buried in, because it seems that this picture is in Kelvin Grove Art Galleries, if anybody hasn't seen it, but it's called The Scotsman. And it's everything any self-respecting Scots person would never have in their house. It's like tartan wallpaper and, you know, antlers and, you know, stuff like that. I mean, I'm never going to anybody's house with tartan wallpaper on their wall. So it's a kind of spoof of all of that stuff. And it was made in Minneapolis, in the Midwest, in the Walker Art Center, which is a fantastic gallery. It has to be because it's in the Midwest. You know, I mean, it's in the middle of nowhere, but it's a fantastic gallery, really wonderful. And we did an exhibition, so I built this whole thing within that gallery space, all of that. I bought all this stuff here, not the chair I got there, but the cabinet and the wee TV and all of the bits and pieces I bought. And so the image was here on the wall, and this was there, and there was like a kind of alleyway between. I put sort of cans and stuff in, so you had to walk in, it was quite dark, and then see this inside. And down here, there's some pencils and stuff, and a wee Godzilla, and some people saying, oh, what's that? And then I said, well, that's where I used to sit when I used to draw as a kid, by the TV. That's that. And so some of it is a bit autobiographical, like the picture of the Sacred Heart is from my granny's house and stuff like that. So that still hangs in Kelvin Grove today. So after a while you get bored of doing, people go, why aren't you doing these big tableaus anymore? Because you can't get places big enough and you can't get old buildings to do them in, and it's just a different thing. So I went back to the street, because I'd switch on the radio in the morning, going to work, driving to work, and they would say, 23 people were killed today by a suicide bomber. 10 people were killed today by a suicide bomber. You know, another 8 people were killed. It's like, who the hell are all these people that are killed? They don't have a roll call of them, they just deed folk. And so I thought, I would really quite like to make some pictures of a kind of homage to these people, you know. And so I wanted to figure out how I would do that in terms of looking at suicide bombers. And so I had to go back to the street. So I had my big plate camera and my flash gun and all that, and I'd photograph, I'd just accost people and say, excuse me Paul, any chance of you being a suicide bomber for us? Because I wanted to take a picture. And it was great because young people were quite happy to do that. You know, because you don't see any old age pensioner suicide bombers. They're all young folk, because presumably they're kind of impressionable and stuff. But anyway, these were young people. So the point was that all of these innocent people, because of this blast, would be gone. There wouldn't be anybody there, they would all die. And they were all enjoying themselves and having fun. And so I would go back again on a Sunday, usually at 6 in the morning, very early, and take a photograph again of the exact same scene, or more or less the exact same scene. And you know, sometimes when you see an accident, you say, yeah, there was an accident there a couple of days ago. And you go, it was just there. Was it here? I can't remember, because it's all back to normal again. And people just close the street and roll the blood off and everything. So I just poured water down there for simulating where the suicide bomber stood, and then just had that. So it's a kind of double image like that. Quite tricky to do these, because the trick is that you need to have folk here in the space where the folk are cut out, you know. So technically quite difficult, when you have to understand the dynamics of people. how that dynamic works in terms of where people are, who they, so it turned out to be slightly more, as is everything, more complex than you first imagined it was going to be. So this is another one. This happened to be a whole crowd of people waiting to see these flats being demolished, actually, as it turned out. And this girl's parents were there, and I asked them would it be okay, and she said she would, okay, that's fine, she wouldn't mind doing it. So again, the idea is that, if she is a suicide bomber, then none of these people will survive, they'll all be dead. And that's, whoops, sorry. And then that's the image afterwards of that. So I wasn't really particularly concerned about the composition or whatever, I just set it up wherever I could. The same with the ones in Edinburgh that I used. I mean, normally, pictorially, you would look for an area in Edinburgh that was interesting, but I didn't do that, and it made the city very strange. It didn't make the city not look like the city in a sense. Okay? So I'm rushing now because I know I'm running out of time. This is another project that I did a couple of years ago and I'm still kind of running on with, and it's called No Cost Images. So these are pictures where I don't spend a penny, which is a great thing for me because I hate spending money on making these things. And so this is photocopies, right? So I make up an idea where I don't have to spend any money, and I'm using a digital camera to do this. So in effect, digital cameras costing me money, but in a sense, I'm not using film or processing or stuff like that. And the photocopies, I get for free, right? I don't pay for the photocopies, okay? So I just blag them from wherever I can. And this was actually, as a visiting lecturer in Falmouth, I was doing this, so we did this with some students. And I'm thinking, what can I do? They all photographed it, so I know, I'll get them all to photograph their hands. Because I had this idea in mind, I was going to do it myself with my own hand, and I thought, brilliant, I'm going to do this visiting thing, I'll get them all to do it, that'll be great. So I did that, and they all came back with photocopies, and I was going to get them to cut it out. And I thought, no, health and safety, cutting out students, that's fingers off, stuff like that, blood all over the floor. So I thought, nah, forget that. Right, so what I did was I got them to just tear them. And in actual fact, the tearing was better because it had a little kind of white jagged edge right round it, which made it more immediate somehow. And because it was a photographic, well, because the art campus was somewhere else, they didn't have any paint. I sent somebody out to get some paint, some red paint, just to splash on it. Come back, not got any, it's down in the town, the paint department. Oh God. So we had to go to the catering department and get tomato sauce. So the red is tomato sauce, and you threw tomato sauce at it. It smelled dreadful, but it worked fine, It worked fine. And actually from a distance, this is big, you can make this 8x8, this is a huge thing. I mean, from a distance it looks very pleasing. It's like, oh look, it's like a Christmas tree, that's lovely. And you get real close to it, and it's all these hands. And it's about the Tutsi and Hutu massacres in Angola, I can't remember exactly now.
Rwanda.
Yeah, Rwanda, where they chopped folks' hands off. That came from the Belgian Congo. When Belgians were there, that was the thing that they did. So they learned from that. So that's what that is. And this is another photocopy, just a coloured one. And it's like, I read an article in the newspaper, Sunday newspaper, which was talking about racism and how, lots of immigrants are coming into this country now, isn't it terrible and all that, and it's like, well, and they were saying, well, actually, we exploited loads of countries as well. And she said she remembered her father was a diplomat, and he lived, and they lived in Belgium because he was part of that. And the Belgian were particularly bad in the Congo for putting down any uprisings and stuff like that, as they chopped people's hands off. And she said she remembered when she was 12 years old going to the Museum of African Antiquity or whatever there, which is still there in Belgium, and seeing in a glass case a leg as an umbrella stand. She said she saw that there. And I've seen an elephant's foot, but I've never seen nothing. And so I thought, what an image, that is fantastic. It speaks a lot about our inhumanity to man, and also to people that you subjugate. But the other thing is, it's like, how do you go up to somebody and say, especially a coloured person, and say, excuse me, any chance of you dropping your trousers so I can get a photograph of your leg? But I did manage to do that. I'm going to rush on, sorry, I'm taking up too much time here. And this is called when the oil runs out, we'll use elasticated catapults to fire rockets. And I've just got a few more to go, okay, sorry, I don't need to take up too much time. This is a series that I did last year. I became obsessed with wild flowers. Last year seemed to be a fantastic time for wild. It's like the first time I'd ever seen wild flowers. Like Andy and I were talking when we were looking at work through and he was saying, you know, that you know everybody's a part of a child, and like for me, this was the first time I'd really seen wild flowers. I don't know last year if it was so abundant or not, but I became totally obsessed by photographing wild flowers last year. And so this is a piece of earth that's kind of cut out here. Again, these banners are big, they're about 8 foot, so they're much bigger than life size. But it was a fascinating thing, I loved doing it, I loved it. Not most, I mean, I have lots of stories about these things, because you're not really supposed to be taking wildflowers from the landscape, you know, actually. But a lot of these were weeds, to be honest. And this is one of poppies, which again is very difficult to photograph poppies because they're very fragile and, you know, they don't last for any time at all. And again, these are quite big. These are digitally done, and they're quite big, and you can see the kind of quality that you get from these things here. This is a project. I teach at the moment. I teach in Motherwell College at the moment, which is a great place to teach at. I really like it there. But I'm always thinking of ways where I can spend my time well, and so I use the facilities there as well, and the students, to make work. You know, because I'm thinking, right, what can I do here when I'm here rather than just know anything? And so this is about religion, and you can't see here because it's going to be big, but it's about religion, and it's about the idea that, you know, people are so staunch in their religion. You know, I'm a Muslim, I'm a Christian, you know, I'm a Jew. You know, it's like, and in a sense, it's only like Russian roulette, and you're born like that anyway. It's not as if you had any given right to be that, you know. And so the roulette table is about, you know, the spinning of the table to decide who your parents are. And also, there's these kind of ethnic people here have little signs on their head that say atheist, Muslim, Hindu, Christian. And I think I'm going to be a series of 3 of these, and I'll just change the names about and change the people about, so they look like they're changed, but they're the same people. But so it's a stereotype thing and a religious type thing. Okay, so that's what it's about. Malcolm said, "Can you show some new stuff?" I was like, "Well, yeah, I can." And I was up till 2 this morning, so I'm trying to. It's not finished, this thing. The last thing I did was this thing I'm doing right at the moment is about Scotland and the referendum that's coming along, and Liberty Leading the People by Eugene Delicart, 1830, fantastic painting. He wasn't there himself, of course, but he could paint. He said, "I can't fight for the people, but I can paint for the people." And they made this great picture of this, and I've kind of made not a spoof picture. I'm not exactly sure what it is actually going to be, but it's about national identity and our role in this referendum that comes along, this yes/no vote thing that comes along, and it's not finished yet at all. But this is a kind of idea of it's all me as well. Because here's the thing: if you can't, I mean, you can't ask models to like strip down to hardly nothing and take a picture. It would just look weird. So I just photograph them myself. So it's just me. So it's not a narcissistic thing. It's easier to do that. And apart from my grandson who's here, my grandson is here. And so this is, and so the figure in blue who's supposedly a print worker has a yes/no vote here, and also the second question in his back pocket, which of course is superseded now because they've signed a form, but you don't have a second question now. But when there was one, that was it. So that is my picture when it's finished about national identity thing, and that's it.